Make sure you listen close, 'cause she's gonna teach you everything.
Success in music can take a lifetime to build and a single moment to destroy. For some artists, it was a public statement that shocked the wrong audience. For others, it was a financial choice, a legal mistake, or a creative gamble that simply did not pay off. Today we are counting down 10 musicians whose careers were permanently altered by one defining bad decision. If stories about the rise and fall of legendary artists are the kind of content that keeps you watching, consider subscribing to Golden Rewind so you never miss a video like this. These are not stories about gradual decline or shifting tastes. These are sharp, definable turning points you can pin to a specific moment on a calendar. Some of these artists recovered, at least partially. Others never did. Let us get into it, starting with number 10. Number 10, Sinead O'Connor. On a Saturday night in October of 1992, one of the most critically respected voices in pop music walked onto the stage of Saturday Night Live and tore her career in half along with a photograph of Pope John Paul II. She had just finished an a cappella performance of Bob Marley's War, and when she ripped that image in front of a live television audience, her intention was to protest child abuse within the Catholic Church. History would eventually vindicate the message. The immediate fallout was a different matter entirely. Radio stations pulled her music within days. Concert bookings evaporated. At a Bob Dylan tribute concert shortly afterward, the crowd booed her off the stage. The album sales she had built following Nothing Compares to You collapsed almost overnight. She continued recording and performing for years, and her voice never lost its extraordinary power, but the mainstream career she had built was finished by a single 2-minute act of protest. Number 9, Milli Vanilli. At the height of their popularity in 1989 and 1990, Fab Morvan and Rob Pilatus were among the most commercially successful acts in pop music. Their debut album sold around 30 million copies worldwide. They accepted a Grammy Award for Best New Artist in front of a global audience. Then their producer, Frank Farian, made a public admission that reshaped everything. Morvan and Pilatus had not sung a single note on any of their recordings. Session vocalists had performed every part. The revelation triggered an industry-wide scandal that resulted in the Recording Academy revoking their Grammy, the only time in history that award has been formally taken back from a recipient. The duo's decision to accept the manufactured identity rather than insist on their own voices cost them everything. Lawsuits followed. Their record deal dissolved. Rob Pilatus passed away in 1998. Fab Morvan has spent the decades since working to restore some version of the legacy that collapsed around him. Number 8, MC Hammer.
We got to pray just to make it today.
By 1991, he was one of the highest-earning entertainers in America. His album, Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em, had sold over 10 million copies in the United States alone. And Stanley Kirk Burrell, known everywhere as MC Hammer, had become a genuine cultural phenomenon. What followed was one of the most spectacular cases of financial self-destruction in music history. At the peak of his earnings, he maintained a staff estimated at around 200 people, kept multiple lavish properties, and spent at a pace that no income stream could have sustained. By around 1996, he had filed for bankruptcy, carrying debts estimated in the tens of millions of dollars. The decision was not a single reckless purchase. It was a sustained, systematic refusal to build any financial foundation beneath the spectacle. His musical momentum never recovered. He later found purpose in faith and entrepreneurship, and he remained a cultural figure of a certain kind, but the commercial peak was gone for good.
No, cause Hammer don't play that. You try to get in mine, boy, you better step back, please, cause you don't want none.
Number 7, Cat Stevens.
And I try to explain, cause when I do, he turns away again.
In early 1978, Yusuf Islam, then still known professionally as Cat Stevens, converted to Islam and stepped away from music almost entirely. His catalog of 70s folk and soft rock classics remained beloved, and there was always a quiet goodwill attached to his name. Then, in early 1989, a reporter asked him about the fatwa issued against author Salman Rushdie. His answer, which he later clarified and in several respects walked back publicly, was interpreted widely as an endorsement of the death sentence against Rushdie. The backlash across the United States and Europe was immediate and severe. Radio stations dropped his catalog, stores pulled his records. Whatever his actual intentions in that interview, the public perception hardened quickly and did not soften for a very long time. He has since returned to recording and made a quiet peace with his complicated public history, but the lasting mainstream resonance his work might have carried was damaged by a few poorly chosen words in a single interview. Number 6. Dave Lee Roth. Van Halen had spent the better part of a decade becoming one of the most electrifying rock bands in the world, and their 1984 album had just sent them to commercial heights they had never previously reached, driven in large part by the massive hit Jump. The momentum was extraordinary. Then, just as it peaked, their frontman walked out the door. Dave Lee Roth departed Van Halen in 1985, reportedly over clashing creative visions and disagreements about the direction of the band's image. He launched a solo career that produced early flashes of success, including a cover of California Girls. But without the band behind him, Roth never achieved the sustained star power he had commanded as Van Halen's frontman. Van Halen hired Sammy Hagar and continued having major hits. Roth spent the following 2 decades cycling through attempted comebacks and a brief, troubled reunion with the band that never quite took. The career arc he might have had remained forever just out of reach. Before we continue the countdown, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. It is always great to hear from viewers across the country and around the world. Now, let us keep going with number 5. Number 5, Lauryn Hill. Few careers in modern music began with more undeniable promise. Lauryn Hill's 1998 album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, won 5 Grammy Awards and was received as something close to a masterpiece by critics and fans alike. Then the years that followed brought a slow and painful unraveling. Hill withdrew from touring, became difficult for promoters and collaborators to work with, and largely stopped releasing music. The decision that ultimately carried the most concrete damage was her choice to stop filing and paying federal taxes over several years. She pled guilty to federal tax charges in 2013 and served a brief prison sentence. The legal trouble compounded a reputation that had already suffered from years of canceled shows and erratic public appearances. She has performed and recorded sporadically in the time since, and she remains a figure of deep respect among those who remember the brilliance of that debut. The sustained career those talents clearly deserved, however, never fully materialized.
I came to see him and listen for a while.
Number 4, George Michael.
I'm never gonna dance again. Guilty feet, I got no rhythm.
The arrest came in April of 1998 in a Beverly Hills public restroom during a police sting operation. On its own, the incident might have been manageable for an artist of his stature. George Michael had already navigated a successful reinvention from the polished pop of his days with Wham to a critically respected solo career with genuine adult credibility. What followed the arrest made everything significantly harder. His public response was read by many as defiant rather than contrite. He came out in a television interview on CNN and released a music video that appeared to mock the arresting officer. Some admirers found the candor refreshing. Others were simply confused by the tone. Record sales fell. His already fractured relationship with Sony Records deteriorated further. He continued releasing music through the 2000s, but never regained the commercial dominance he had once enjoyed. He passed away on Christmas Day 2016, leaving behind an extraordinary catalog and a career story defined as much by its squandered late momentum as by its considerable early peak. Number 3, Mariah Carey. By 2001, she held the record for the most #1 singles by a solo artist in the United States at the time. Arrived. The semi-autobiographical film opened in September of 2001 in the immediate aftermath of the September 11th attacks and it failed at the box office by almost any measure. The accompanying soundtrack album also underperformed significantly. Carey suffered a widely covered public breakdown around the same time, including an erratic appearance on the MTV program TRL that became one of the most discussed moments in pop culture that year. Her record label, EMI, ultimately paid her an estimated $28 million to exit her contract. The collapse was stunning given the commercial heights she had reached just a few years earlier. She did eventually mount one of the more remarkable comeback stories in pop music history, but the fall first was steep, prolonged, and completely public. Number 2. Billy Joel. Billy Joel was one of the most beloved singer-songwriters of his generation, a man whose catalog stretched across decades of American experience, from Piano Man to We Didn't Start the Fire, and whose concerts remained among the most reliably popular in the country well into the 2000s. His personal struggles with alcohol, however, became increasingly impossible to ignore as the years went on. A pattern of driving under the influence led to a series of car accidents in the Hamptons area of New York, including at least 3 separate incidents involving his vehicle striking residential properties over several years. Each incident renewed unwanted national coverage and complicated the public narrative around his legacy in ways that straightforward artistic criticism never had. Joel pulled back from releasing new pop records and largely stepped away from major commercial activity, eventually settling into occasional concert residency performances rather than sustained creative output. The talent was never in doubt. The choices that shadowed the talent were another matter entirely. Number 1. Garth Brooks. Not every bad decision destroys a career permanently, and the story of Garth Brooks and his 1999 alter ego experiment is a useful reminder of that. In '99, Brooks was the best-selling solo recording artist in American history and one of the most trusted figures in country music, an artist whose audiences showed up in numbers that almost no one else in any genre could match. He chose that moment to release a concept album under a fictional persona named Chris Gaines, a pop and alternative rock character meant to precede a film that was never ultimately made. His country audience was genuinely baffled. Rock and pop listeners were not sure what to make of a country superstar experimenting in an entirely different genre. The album sold respectably, but nowhere near the level a Garth Brooks release was expected to reach. He stepped away from music for several years after that, citing family as his priority. When he returned to touring in 2014, the audiences came back without hesitation and filled arenas as enthusiastically as ever. Sometimes the lesson of one bad decision is simply that one good comeback is all it takes to write over it.
I'll just say goodnight and I'll shove myself to the door.